So, why has Cold Lake decided to allow urban beekeeping?
Basically, this is something that we started seeing emerging in other communities in Alberta. I believe actually the city of Edmonton was the first municipality that I'm aware of that started allowing urban beekeeping, and I think they started back in 2015, if I recall correctly. And so we try to stay ahead of the trends or up with the trends. So um, once we start seeing things like this start becoming more commonplace in other communities in the province, we wanted to bring this in. Also, what we saw during the COVID years is we started seeing an increase in people that were aware that other communities were allowing things like beekeeping or urban hen keeping, and I think during COVID, people were kind of twofold. People were looking for things to do while they were at home with a lot of time on their hands. And also, I think just with some of the supply shortages and things like that, there was some concerns over food security as well. So we saw an increase in people asking about some of these kind of almost sort of small scale at home farming type of activities that some other municipalities were starting to permit.
Has an interest from people in cleaner living contributed to this?
We had a number of residents reach out to us that were interested in that. So we started looking to see kind of what is the best practices, how have other communities in the province started to address this. And really we patterned our policy or our bylaw after those that the city of Edmonton, city of St. Albert, and some other municipalities in the province are using to kind of keep our regulations on par with what those other communities were looking at.
What are some of the requirements for people that are interested in starting a beehive of their own?
From the city's end, you'd need to apply for an urban beekeeping license. And as part of that process, we want you to provide us with a plan showing where your hives are going to be located on the property. They need to be a certain distance away from adjoining properties. There's certain physical parameters in terms of the size and placement of the hive itself to try and deter bees from flying directly into an adjacent yard or onto maybe a sidewalk or a school ground or something that might be next to the person's house. We also, an important part of it is we also require that you show evidence that you've actually passed, have a certificate, and you've actually passed a course in responsible beekeeping, and that you've had some mentoring from somebody that's actually an experienced beekeeper, so that we want to have that level of comfort that before we permit a license, that you've demonstrated that you know how to care for the bees responsibly to minimize any harm to both the bees themselves as well as any neighbors and things that might be impacted by your beekeeping activity as well.
Residents who decide to have a beehive have to carry 2 million in liability insurance. What's the reason behind that?
The intent of that would be to cover in case there was any sort of incident that occurred as a result of the beekeeping that's occurring on that property that you'd have before we would grant a license. We'd want to see that the applicant had that insurance in place so that if there should be ever an incident related to their beekeeping activities, that they have that insurance coverage.
Does the city of Cold Lake foresee any problems, or is beekeeping fairly straightforward?
To the best of my knowledge, the beekeeping's fairly straightforward. Because we've just adopted our policy here and it's kind of late in the year, I don't anticipate that we'll see people applying probably until likely February, March, kind of into the spring, as that's the time when people typically would pick up their supply of new bees and beekeeping supplies and kind of start for the year at that time. And also, I should point out that the city also, this has just sort of been approved as a 2-year pilot program, so that we give people that are interested an opportunity to sort of try it out, as well as for the municipality ourselves, we can sort of learn what are some of the potential issues. Are there any issues, I guess I should say, and have an opportunity to sort of reflect and maybe update our policy and then give city council some feedback in terms of whether this is something the city would allow on an ongoing basis or whether we would need to curtail that program, given that it's been offered in a number of other municipalities for, again, going back as far as 2015. We're not anticipating that there should be any great issues emerge, as well the fact that anyone applying that is licensed has to have that background to show that they've been um, that they have that responsible beekeeping background and mentorship that they've already gone through when they come in to apply for a license. Hopefully, will go a long way towards mitigating any potential issues as well.
Residents are limited to one hive in their backyard. Is that designed to keep people from getting in over their heads?
Yeah, that's the intent, to sort of keep it small scale so that it is really just for the family's personal use. Without There is a stipulation in there as well that you can't be selling honey or honey products from your residential property. So it is really intended to sort of keep it on a small scale, just that would be manageable for sort of a typical family on their own at their own home.
So, where can people turn if they're looking to find out more information on the urban beekeeping plan?
Just There are a number of providers that can provide that actual background and education in beekeeping. So I would certainly recommend to anybody that's looking at beekeeping to get a hold of us, and we can provide some of those resources and information to share on some of those providers for that beekeeping service. Also, the government of Alberta, if you actually look up the provincial apiculturist. They actually have a very good website that talks about some considerations if you're looking at starting beekeeping, as well as information on common like bee diseases and things like that that might affect your beekeeping as well. So I'd certainly recommend to people to look up that are interested in this topic to look up the provincial apiculturist website.
Well, thanks for joining me today, Brad. Thanks for the information. I appreciate it.